Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franson here, co-host for this show where we feature top restaurateurs, investors, and business leaders. This is part of our Spot On series. Spot On has the best-in-class payment platform for retail, and they have a flagship solution called Spot On Restaurant, where they combine marketing, software, and payments all in one. They've served everyone from larger chains like Dairy Queen and Subway to small mom-and-pop restaurants. To learn more, go to spoton.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses to get ROI, clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships through Done-For-You podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build great relationships with clients, referral partners, and thought leaders in your space, there's no better way to do it than through podcasts and content marketing. To learn more, go to rise25media.com or email us at support@rise25media.com. George McKerrow is co-founder and CEO of Ted's Montana Grill, a classic American grill serving made-from-scratch dishes in an eco-friendly environment. It's based in Atlanta and has 39 locations across 16 states. In 1981, George opened the first Longhorn Steakhouse, and then in 1996, he co-founded We're Cookin Inc, which now has 2 successful fine dining establishments in Atlanta. George received the first Lifetime Achievement Award from the Georgia Restaurant Association in 2007 for his years of service to the Georgia restaurant industry, and in October 2008, he was inducted into the Atlanta Hospitality Hall of Fame by the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau. George, it's a great pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
I am great. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. Hey, thank you so much. So just before we get started, just tell me a little bit more about Ted's Montana Grill. What do you feel makes it unique?
Well, Ted's Montana Grill was conceived by my partner, Ted Turner, and I to introduce bison to America's table. And we basically had 4 pillars to our decision to go into business together. The first was to save the great American bison, which belongs on the Great Plains and across the North America, where it's a unique species. Second of all was to help all of the bison ranchers that had gotten into the business and were struggling financially with actually selling their product. Oftentimes that's an issue. The marketing and selling is different than the manufacturing and growing. And third of all was that Ted is at the time the largest landowner in the United States. He still owns nearly 2 million acres primarily in ranch lands in the western part of the United States. So he was operating 15 bison ranches, and he's the largest bison rancher in the country, if not the world. At the time, he too wanted to create a financially successful and stable business so that his future generations could hold on to those properties. And last but not least was to do that through creating a group of unique restaurants that feature bison as our primary product and build a restaurant group that we could both be proud of and that was profitable. And I'm happy to say, after 20 short years and for many years in the past, we've accomplished all 4 of those goals.
Yes, very nice. Congratulations on that. So there's a lot to get into with Ted's, and we'll get back to more about Ted's in just a bit. But first, tell me a little bit about your history in the restaurant industry. How did you get started?
Well, I got a job in high school flipping pancakes at Uncle John's Pancake House. And like many other CEOs and successful restaurant tours, we all kind of start out there in the trenches. So I was a busboy, dishwasher, and later cook.
All at Uncle John's?
At Uncle John's Pancake House. And I went off to college and I studied pre-law and thought I wanted to be a lawyer, but I went to school from 1968 to 1972, and I had second thoughts about law school when I graduated. So I did what I knew how to do. I went and got a job in a restaurant, and I started there as a bar back and bartender, and I at a place called Smuggler's Inn, and I enjoyed it very much. And I remember my father came down and said, gosh, what are you doing with your college education I just paid for? I said, well, Dad, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm making a lot of money. I'm meeting a lot of girls. I'll go to law school next year. Well, that was 1973. And I've never gone back to law school. And I've been in the business ever since. From there, I took a unique job down in the Shenandoah Valley, running a small family-owned restaurant called the Log Cabin Supper Club. Quickly learned what I didn't know about managing and owning a restaurant. Went back and got a job with a company called Victoria Station Restaurants. They actually never had any in Colorado, but it was one of the founding casual dining steakhouses, so to speak. Steak and Ale, Cork and Cleaver, Chart House, Victoria Station. We ended up with over 100 restaurants. And I went to work for them in 1975 and worked my way from assistant manager to regional manager. When I left at the end of 1980, shortly after that, 1981, I founded the original Longhorn Steakhouse on Peachtree Road, which in August turned 40 years old.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we'll get into Longhorn as well. There's a lot to get into with you, sir. But first, what is it about the restaurant industry that was so appealing to you? You know, probably when you're young, law school is kind of a prestigious thing to do, but you've not only stuck with it, you've stuck with it for your entire, adult career. What is it that's so appealing to you?
Well, I love being of service to people. And frankly, I love seeing people happy and satisfied and feeling better than they did when they walk out the door than they did when they came in. But it's, our business is an art form, and people don't understand that we're the only industry that orders, receives, manufactures, sells, produces, delivers, and collects for its product all in one day. And we're only as good as the number of guests that come through the front door each and every day and voluntarily take money out of their pocket, spend it on nourishment and food and hospitality. And so, it just got in my blood. I love our business. I think our business is highly misunderstood and disregarded by many. It is a unique business, like I said. And remember, pre-pandemic, and I'm sure post-pandemic, we're the second largest private sector employer in the country. And we were providing more than 15.6 million excellent jobs in 2020. And we're well on our way back to that. And so I think, again, it's an industry I'm proud of. It's a unique industry. It's creative. It's fun. And, if you're lucky, you can make a little bit of money.
How have you been able to kind of keep the "we are here to serve the customer" in perspective? You'd think, well, when you've been around for this long and you've kind of run, hundreds of restaurants, how do you still kind of keep that attitude where you're there, worried about specific customers?
Well, I think the end of the day is the customer's our paycheck. And all we have after our hard work, long weeks, long hours, holidays, all we really have is our reputation. And if you deliver on your promises of great food, great service, a great attitude in a spotlessly clean restaurant, and you give people genuine hospitality, and you treat them with respect, and you make them have a very memorable experience when they dine with you, they become your marketing arm, and they go out and tell all their friends, and you have a successful business. If you don't do those things, you fail. And the truth is that 95% of all restaurants that open fail in the first year. And so we are a very unique business in that we're winning our customers every day. And the only way we win them is to give them, a reason to come back. And so I love to meet and greet people at the front door. As a CEO and past chairman and other executive positions I've held and still hold, I miss the day-to-day of being in the restaurants. And I spend a lot of time visiting all of our restaurants and saying hello and goodbye to the customers and welcome in the front door as if they're coming into my own home.
So as you mentioned, you opened the first Longhorn Steakhouse in 1981. That was 40 years ago. You had had experience working in steakhouses, but you opened your first one in 1981. Can you tell me how kind of that process went for you and how it came about?
Well, we failed before we ever opened, but I'll just say this at the beginning. I have learned more from my failures than I have from my success. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I enjoy a tolerance for high risk. So I had left Victoria Station, as I said, as a regional manager, and I went to work with a friend of mine in the recruiting business, specifically in the restaurant business. And I quickly found out how much I hated 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, sitting behind a desk. And so another friend of mine came to me and said, I've got an idea for a new restaurant. It's Texas Honky Tonk Saloon, highly successful in Austin and Dallas and Houston. I think we ought to spread it out across the country. I've got the investor, and I'll give you a big piece of equity if you'll come own and operate the restaurants with me. And I said, great. Went down and studied the restaurants and learned as much as I could about them. And I found them to be unique. It was a unique time, 1981, John Travolta, the urban cowboy. There was a great fascination with the West at that time, Western cuisine in particular. And so the timing was right. You also had the major chains that I discussed, Victoria Station Steak, Cork and Cleaver, losing their market share through, we won't go into for reasons. And then you sort of had the family Ponderosa and Bonanza steakhouses, which were really fast casual, right? You stood in line and take your tray and they'd bring you a steak out. It was really low priced and low quality. And so I saw an opening in the market for high quality, fun, unique roadhouse atmosphere, which is what these restaurants called the Hofbrau in Texas had. And so we agreed to a partnership, and I quit my job and got a job as a bartender. Once again, back to my trade to pay the bills. And I went about building the restaurant, and I found a location on a 40-mile-an-hour curve with a one-way driveway and an old yellow front adult bookstore on Peachtree Road in Atlanta. So hardly a great location, but it was affordable on my bartender salary. And we designed and built the first restaurant, and got halfway through it, and my partner disappeared. Turned out he didn't really have the financing that he thought he had. So I had two choices. I could go back and get a job with a big company as a regional manager, or I could follow my heart, my dream, and finish what I started. I chose the latter, and I went and got two investors plus my father, and we capitalized the company, and we opened it in August of 1981. And we had 300 of our closest friends in for free food and beverage to celebrate. And the first day we did 14 lunches and 21 dinners. So we quickly did what so many restaurateurs fail to realize that we were not going to be an overnight success. And unfortunately, we didn't have any reserve cash, which I would recommend anybody that starts a restaurant, make sure you have plenty of reserve cash, because we basically went broke. So that was the second time, right? We'd gone broke once with the first investor, and now we were on the verge of going broke again. But oftentimes I had to let all the employees go. Oftentimes I greeted you at the front door, took your order, cooked your food, made your drinks, delivered your food, collected your check, and slept in the restaurant. And I just believed in what I was doing. And by January or February of 1982, we were earning a really positive reputation. And by the end of the year, we had a successful business. We got some great press and public relations, which I worked on also to build our awareness. And 22 months later, we opened the second Longhorn. And within the first 10 years, by 1992, we had 30 Longhorn Steakhouses across the Southeast primarily, and some franchise units in there. And we took the company public. And we took the company public in 1992. And in 1994, the end of the year, we missed our earnings, and our stock plummeted by 70%. reevaluated the company again, brought in some well-known operational excellence in management, and started the company off on a positive trend. In 1995, we purchased a company called Bugaboo Creek Steakhouse, which was from the Northeast Bugaboo Capital Grill, which we still own, and several other independent restaurants. We merged those two companies to form Rare Hospitality. I retired in 2000, and the company was sold for $1.4 billion in 2007 to Darden. Proud of the fact that most of the top management, including the CEO, Gene Lee, all came to work with us at Rare Hospitality in 1995 and 96, and they're now running the largest full-service restaurant company in the United States with multiple brands. And Longhorn is 540 plus restaurants today, a $2 billion company, and second only to Olive Garden within their portfolio. So it's been a great history. The fundamentals of the company are alive and well. They still believe in the things that I believe in, and they've done an outstanding job with it.
When you opened that first one, and you were kind of a one man show doing everything, did you ever imagine the idea that it would be around 40 years later and be as successful as it's been?
Well, that wasn't my original plan. My original plan was to own a series of Longhorn Steaks restaurants, maybe 5 to 7 of them right here in Atlanta. I was only 30 years old, so I'll just say this. Have plenty of cold beers and lots of golf and lots of fun. And I also had a plan, which I did do it for a few years, which was to find other friends and partners and partner with them in unique individual concepts. We chose not to go that route and bought those two out and just focused on Longhorn. But the end of the day is no, I felt like we had a winner on our hands, or I wouldn't have stuck with it. I think I helped deliver it to be a unique and interesting concept. I mean, the industry credits Longhorn with having started the cowboy cuisine trend, and the owners of Outback attribute it as an Australian version of Longhorn. And at one point, there was 9 publicly traded companies that were basically Texas Roadhouses that were very similar to, if not direct copies of Longhorn. So I'm proud of it. And I think there's lots of people along the way that have contributed to that. Certainly not just me. And
then in 1996, you co-founded We're Cookin, which has 2 award-winning restaurants in Atlanta. How did that get started? You were kind of in the midst of all that other stuff at the same time.
Well, uniquely, I like to move pretty quickly. And again, I told you I was an entrepreneur. So I had my eye on some really unique properties around Atlanta. Canoe is 3.5 acres of English walking gardens on the river that runs through Atlanta. It's a unique historical site that was first built in 1945 after the war. And there were several others. And I just wanted to get into a new level of business, which was a fine dining, more upscale business. And so I put together a partnership, and we purchased that restaurant site and opened up an Alice Waters farm to table, locally grown, locally sustainable restaurant in 1995. Proud of the fact that it's 26 years old today and going strong. And so we were unique again, being farm to table, locally sourced, primarily organic restaurant before it was cool. Aria was a unique facility, a little bistro, fine dining. We opened it in 1996 as a attempt to be a Michelin 3-star restaurant. It's highly successful today. As Aria, our chef partner, Jerry Clascala, is one of the best chefs in the United States, recognized as such. And he runs a very fun, unique business over there. And, we have a lot of things to be proud of there too.
As we mentioned, you co-founded Ted's Montana Grill with Ted Turner in 2002. How did that partnership with Ted Turner come about?
Well, three ways. Number one, Ted was trying to introduce bison to America's table, and so he formed a bison company to sell it retail. He was the largest bison ranch country at that time, having over 30,000 head of bison. There was about 300,000 head of bison alive in the marketplace. I just want to point out that there's roughly 100+ million cattle in the United States. There was 300,000 bison alive in the world. So you get the picture. It's a very niche, unique business. And Ted wanted to help bison ranchers and help bison in general save the species. And I know it sounds unique, but the best way to save the species was to put it on the table so that it would be ranched, because if it was left in zoos and parks, and the animal husbandry just doesn't work, right? The species would be extinct. And so he introduced it. I fell in love with it as an alternative red meat protein because it's half the fat and cholesterol of beef. It's a top 5 foods women should eat for iron replacement. It's a very unique omega-3 fatty acid light, a unique product, and native to North America. And so I had this idea in the back of my mind brewing all the time about a gourmet hamburger stand, so to speak. Again, before gourmet hamburgers, but really unique, kind of Western themed, but specializing in 20 different kinds of beef burgers at the time was always in my brain. And then you have the convergence of the fact that the industry started to suffer, and it wasn't working out, like I said earlier. And so I went to Ted and said, I knew his daughter and his son-in-law, Lauren Rutherford, quite well. I didn't want to ever have to go back to Wall Street or an M&A banker and deal with all that goes on with that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my cup of tea. I'll leave it at that. And mostly because I think the only thing predictable about the restaurant business is that it's unpredictable, and Wall Street and bankers want predictability. So I think we're like oil and water. But anyway, so Ted was at the time very, very wealthy, worth $9 or $10 billion. I felt like he had bison, which was a unique product. He's an entrepreneur. He's a local Atlanta guy. And he had the ability to finance our growth without me ever having to go ask for money from anybody else. So I put together a white paper and we presented it to him, and he said, I love the idea. And we shook hands in May of 2001, and we've never had a contract. I'm the only partner he's ever had. And we've had a wonderful 20-year partnership. And we've accomplished our 4 pillars that we set out to accomplish. And we're both very proud of what Ted's Montana Grill has done.
Yeah, most definitely. Was it difficult to convince people to try bison? I mean, now it's pretty commonplace, but at the time, was it difficult to convince people to make that switch?
Yeah, I think that was what the industry is, right? I mean, bison was more expensive and still is. It was also very misunderstood. Most people that had eaten bison had, gone out to Yellowstone Park or someplace, and it's because it's so lean. If you overcook it or cook it too fast, it's basically like eating a piece of dehydrated shoe leather, right? And so the issue is bison needs to be cooked slow and low. And also, if you do cook steaks or burgers, about half the time of beef, because it's so dense and it doesn't have a lot of internal fat. So I think a lot of people had gone out, bought it, and it wasn't very good. Second of all, we did some research, and we found out, that wives said, well, it reminds me of something my husband drug out of the woods. Isn't that an endangered species? I don't want to endanger Bambi. I don't want to eat Bambi, So we had a big mountain to climb, which is why we approached the business the way we did. We approached the business very uniquely. with Ted with very deep pockets, we opened 6 restaurants in the first 12 months of our existence. So we started the company day one, July 1st of 2001. Remember, we had 9/11 in September, and we opened the very first Ted's Montana Grill in January of 2002. So roughly 6 months after the concept was conceived, I started with a blank piece of paper. It was very daunting, and created the concept, everything about it: uniforms, training materials, food, recipes, everything, with a team of people. And we also at the same time went out across the country and secured real estate in Atlanta, Georgia, Columbus, Ohio, Nashville, Tennessee, and Denver, Colorado. And that was to test all the different markets. Denver was the highest per capita consumption of bison in the country. Made sense. Western market. Ohio is a unique, Columbus is a unique Midwestern test market. And of course, we were known in Atlanta. The following year, we opened 12 restaurants. That's 200% growth. The third year, we opened 15, and on and on and on. And so, look, the end of the day is Ted's Montana Grill is still to this day the number one seller of bison in the country. It's a unique concept, and we can prove through research and National Bison Association, wherever we put a Ted's Montana Grill restaurant, demand and consumption of bison went up significantly. And the national press that we've garnered over the years has created a nationwide market for it. Costco is the largest seller of bison in the country today. It's in every major grocery store chain across America, versus sort of being sold out of the back of the pickup truck of some mom and pop ranchers, essentially, when we started. So, bison's here to stay. There's 600,000 or more growing in the herd today. Ted's herd is 55,000 or so. It's a highly profitable business for the ranchers that are in it. And there's more getting into it all the time. And then our restaurants remain uniquely successful.
So besides good food, primarily revolving around bison, can you describe the experience you envision your customers having when they go to Ted's?
Yeah, so we harken back to simpler times. We're a chef-driven restaurant that happens to serve classic American comfort food with somewhat of a modern spin on it. When I say that is, everything comes in our back door fresh. The only freezer we have is for ice cream, and we have no microwaves or boil in the bag food in our restaurant. Unfortunately, many chain restaurants have gone to that. We're cooking real food for real people. And I think it shows in the quality of the experience. When you order French fries at Ted's, it's a whole potato. It's cut, it's washed, spun dry, and it's fried over a 9-minute cycle and delivered to you to your plate. When you order a burger setup or a salad, it's a whole vine-ripe tomato, 12 months a year, sliced to order, chopped to order, and put on your salad or on your burger setup. Croutons, 40 lemons for lemonade. When I say we're a chef-driven restaurant, we make everything in the restaurant from scratch to order. And I think that makes us unique. Second of all, we studied architecture from the turn of the 19th century in 100-year-old saloons and restaurants. And in 1900 to 1910, a saloon was a very upscale building in a town many, many times. And you find these unique buildings from Tattage Grill that's been open since 1856 to, the saloons in Montana and Wyoming and places like that. So we study that. So we have an authentic architecture that's classically comfortable, that's unique to the time, to a different time and a different place. And so we spend a lot of money on the decor and build out of our restaurant. And then we staff it with the friendliest, most hospitable people in the industry. And we're going to welcome you into the front door as if you were coming into our home. And we're going to say, come back and see us soon, or so long, or farewell, or travel safe as you go out the front door. So when we combine all of that together, a unique menu, totally fresh, made from scratch food. The same applies to our bar. I mean, we squeeze fresh fruit, fresh juices. We make our own margarita mix. We make our own Bloody Mary mix. We have an extensive wine and beer menu. And by the way, we have great chicken, fish, poultry, shellfish, other items on the menu, and a unique offering of lots of classic American comfort foods at Ted's. And so I think people seek to repeat their experience at Ted's if we deliver on our promises.
How has COVID affected Ted's?
Well, obviously, I mean, our whole industry was shut down, right? And so when you think back to March 16th, essentially of 2020, every restaurant in the United States of America effectively went out of business. In many places, you could still offer to-go food, but a Canoe or Aria isn't in the to-go food business, nor is a Ted's Montana Grill to speak of. We had a limited amount of customers. So we had to adapt, and we had to look at our business model and our menu and our offerings, and we did that. We were fortunate to be able to keep our employees on the payroll the entire time. We were shut down as little as 6 weeks in places like Georgia and Florida, and as much as a year in places like New York. So it adversely affected our business. Here's one thing people don't understand. Because we are a business that orders, receives, manufactures, sells, produces, and delivers its product all in one day and collects for it, essentially, if you have 2-week, 14-day terms, you're selling food today to pay for 2 weeks ago's bills, right? So a lot of people didn't have big savings account. We're conservative. Fortunately, we had a rather significant savings account. And so we were able to weather the storm of catching up on all the payables. You had zero revenue for 6 weeks while all your bills were due. You had to pay those in order to stay in business. This is why so many restaurants failed and struggled. So we didn't get any government assistance for months after the shutdown. And then you had the advent of trying to get our guests back. I think our industry was unfairly considered the virus villains. If you go back and remember the maps of if someone has COVID and they're in the restaurant, they're going to infect 50 people around them and all the rest of it. Look, here's what I'm going to say to you as an industry veteran. I'm going to protect our business a little bit. People don't understand, because of our unique hood systems that circulate air to prevent from the restaurant being filled with grease and smoke, we rotate air every 11 to 15 minutes in and out of the building. So you're breathing fresh air all the time. Second of all, you are no more likely to catch the virus in a restaurant than you were down at the local Home Depot or grocery store, which stayed open. All of this stuff that was said about the virus living for weeks and days and on surfaces proved to be totally false. It was fallacious. Otherwise, you'd have had everybody at Amazon dropping over dead from COVID because they were all handling our packages. But remember, wash your packages before you let them in your house. Well, the supply chain doesn't work that way. So all of that being said, our industry was devastated. And then we had the comeback, which was slow. So if your employees work for hours on the schedule, if they're an hourly wage earner, and you're not busy enough to give them a 35 or 40-hour work week, they can't really stay in the business. If you have tipped employees that work primarily for $25 to $35 an hour in tips, which is the case at Ted's, and you can't give them their shifts or they aren't busy enough to make that, then they can't stay in the business. So we had a massive flight out of the business, and we're still several million people short. There's more jobs in the restaurant business available today. And by the way, it's a fallacy also that we pay minimum wage or anywhere near it. Our average wages in the heart of the house at Ted's Montana Grill are over $16. And that includes starting wages. And our tipped employees are making anywhere from $25 to $35 an hour. So it's not the money, it's just getting back into business. And the rug was pulled out from underneath so many people. And it was so hard on management. Our management was cooking and washing dishes and scrubbing floors and cleaning toilets because oftentimes they were the only people on the payroll. And so it changed the dynamics of the business dramatically. And we're still in the throes of that today. And I would just remind people that I started as a dishwasher. So did Gene Lee at Darden Restaurants. There's no glass ceiling in the restaurant industry. It's a unique and fun business to get in. And the potential economic rewards are equal to or better than any industry out there.
So you've not only founded, but you've successfully expanded in large detail multiple brands. I can tell just based on your answers to my questions that you're still very, very passionate about the restaurant industry and about Ted's. What are the keys to some of the longevity that your brands specifically have experienced? I mean, you just talked about the 40-year anniversary of Longhorn Steakhouse. I know you're not involved with that anymore, but nevertheless, all of your brands have lasted for more than 2 decades.
Yeah, I mean, Ted's just turned 20 years old in January. So, yes, I think the uniqueness is understanding what the business we're really in. The problem becomes when you start to look at restaurants as a predictable business, right? In other words, we don't manufacture widgets or clothing. There's nothing wrong with any of those businesses. But if you manufacture clothing, right, you put it out there at full retail and it doesn't sell, you mark it down, and it doesn't sell and you mark it down, and then it goes to the outlet store and you recoup at least the covers and it doesn't spoil. If everything you sell spoils, right? We open a bottle of wine for a glass of wine for you, it's only good today. Right?
Right.
If we make fresh meatloaf or grind fresh burgers in our butcher shop for you today and we don't sell it, it's not good past tomorrow. So we're in a unique business. And second of all, we're only as good as that last experience. I mean, the consumer has grown to expect in the United States of America great food, great service, and a great attitude every time. And we can be overwhelmed. I mean, especially as short-staffed as we are. So when you talk about it, the passion for the industry is of being of service and being willing to genuinely give people hospitality. I think I'm going to write a book, 22 chapters long, How to Be Successful in the Restaurant Business. Chapter 1 it's about the food. Chapter 2 is about the service. Chapter 3, it's about the attitude. Chapter 4, it's about cleanliness. And the next 18 chapters say, when in doubt, refer to chapter 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's really a simple business. And when we complicate it or try to make it predictable, so when you talk to an investor, right, it's like, well, let's build a model. What if we build 10 of these? Well, I have a whole bunch of restaurants in my career that I thought were marginal locations that are barn burners and the most successful restaurant I've got. I've got several restaurants that are closed today that I could have sworn to you was a dynamic, incredible location to build a restaurant. So you just never know. So it's a high risk business with a small return. That's the other part. I mean, we're a 5% business if we're lucky. And people don't believe that because they compare what they pay in the grocery store to what they pay in the restaurant. But the truth of the matter is that if you spend less than 95 cents of every dollar that you bring in on overhead and operations and build out and taxes and insurance and the rest of it, you're a miracle worker.
Hey, it's been a great pleasure speaking with you. You have some incredible insights, incredible experience. I have one last question for you, but first, where can people find out more about Ted's Montana Grill?
Go to tedsmontanagrill.com, and we have a great website that tells our entire story and identifies all of our locations. Again, you can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us in social media for all you youngsters out there. But I think if you go to our website, you'll understand more and more about Ted's, and we appreciate your time today.
Great. Final question. What are some books or podcasts that you've enjoyed or even relied upon?
Well, I've read a lot of books over time. I haven't lately really gotten involved in reading any business books. I mean, I go way back to books like Good to Great and Who Moved My Cheese and some very simple stuff. I was looking today. I was reading a unique book. Let me see here. I think I still have it on my desk. and it's called The Soulful Leader. I think that leadership is all about understanding the value of our team and our teammates and every human being we have working for us. I'm not a podcast watcher. I'm going to be very honest with you. My wife is an avid podcast watcher, so she's in the mental health business, and any podcasts I've watched have been related to her business, not to mine. But I certainly probably should get out there and look at more.
That's okay. That's okay. Hey, George, it's been a privilege and a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very kindly.
So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.